Hello and welcome to the Wednesday podcast presented by This is Ibrox. I'm your host, Kyle McLean, and as always, I've got two fantastic guests joining me. The first is the Borough Ranger himself. How are you getting on, JB?
Yeah, very well, mate. Yeah, as we just said off air, then looking forward to talking about this, and looking forward to the game tomorrow, which is normally good. Normally, we're watching things through our fingers, but looking forward to tomorrow. So all good.
Yeah, no, it's nice. I feel there's a wee bit of positivity back at the club at the minute, which is always good. And he was a late transfer, handed in his transfer deadline day there, and he's in. It's Kieran. How I was going to call you Kieran Dowell there, man. Too much Kieran Dowell. That's a bad insult, isn't it?
I know I'm late in here, but I've certainly done more than him. So.
I know, in a Rangers jersey as well. So that's it. How are you getting on anyway, Kieran?
All good. Bit like JB, looking forward to tomorrow. I think it's just Thursdays and Rangers, and these things are meant to be. So fingers crossed for a victory.
Yeah, no, that's it. I think we're all looking forward to the game tomorrow. On today's show, as always, there's plenty to talk about. We've got, I can't wait to hear you guys' thoughts on this, but Mohamed Diomande's red card appeal was successful in the least shocking news of 2025 so far. Obviously, we're going to play Union Saint Gilloise at Ibrox tomorrow in the final game of the Europa League, I'm going to call it. Then we've got all the transfer chat since we were last on Sunday. Dowell's off to Birmingham. A lot of chat around Tom Lawrence, Jefte linked with Chelsea, new deals being rumoured to go to Hagi, Lovelace, and Curtis already signing a new deal. Get the guys' thoughts on that. And thanks to GB, we've got the news of a new assistant manager to Rangers. Well, you were well ahead of the curve on that one, GB. I think even before the press conference happened, you were saying about it. And just any other sort of news. But if you've got any questions, whatever, just pop them in the comments and we'll get to it. JB, I'll come to you first. It was yesterday, it was announced that the red card awarded to Mohamed Diomande, and it was for violent conduct, which it just makes the whole thing even more mental. It was correctly rescinded at a fast-track tribunal hearing. Given the fact that, I've never seen a decision so universally panned in my puff. Mike McCurry was coming out saying it shouldn't have been a red card. Dermot Gallagher on Sky as well. First of all, what was your thoughts on the whole situation, and what do you make of yet another fiasco this season involving Rangers and officiating?
Yeah, I think the meme that's going around, penalty to Rangers, has been replaced with apology to Rangers, isn't it? Which is, I'm sure we can start getting that on t-shirts and hoodies and whatever. But yeah, it was, at the time when I first seen it, I thought, oh, that looks a bit naughty. He's potentially caught him. Do you know what I mean? And then, but then once you see more than one replay, you quite quickly go, nah, there's absolutely nothing in it. So from a referee's perspective on the pitch, you can kind of go, he's tried to hit him. Because I think in Scotland, the rule's different to England, isn't it? In terms of even if you swing and miss, it's classed as violent conduct. Because you've seen the João Pedro one for Brighton, where he absolutely threw an elbow. But the rule is in England, if you connect, then if you miss, then it's not counted, which seems a bit weird. Imagine Cyril Dessers trying to punch someone. But we're not going to bash him tonight. So no, he's doing well. But no, I thought it was, at the time, I thought it was a little bit harsh. I thought it was a little bit harsh then when I seen replays, but then when he went to the screen and you just thought, I was just going to turn it round, no bother. For him to stick with it, it's just like doubling down big time. So, but I wasn't surprised either. There's something about him that he wants to be the centre of attention all the time. You can tell the way he talks to players. You can see the way that he just interacts with the managers and stuff. Looks like he's got a little bit of little man syndrome. So no offense to all the little men watchers out there, but he just, I don't know, he just seems like a little snide, doesn't he? He's the one that was grassing you in school and stuff. So he's no, I wasn't surprised. He stepped into Willie Collum's shoes, hasn't he, as being a bit of a pantomime villain when it comes to Rangers. So yeah, right decision's been made in the end, and luckily it was towards the end of the game. I was quite frustrated watching the end of the game. If you want to jump back to next week, why are we only using 2 subs when you can use 5 in a wafer thin squad? But I'm not gonna try and keep things positive tonight.
No, I think that's fair, but yeah, it's really hard to disagree with anything you've said there. But even the whole thing after it, with there being an official statement from the SFA about 2 hours after the game, even if that, and then it being rescinded, and it was, it was the unofficial statement. It was. I just find the whole thing all so bizarre, and just I don't know if the club are maybe missing out on being, I don't know, making the most of that opportunities like this, because I mean you've got the SFA over a barrel here. I mean that is just one of the worst decisions I've ever seen in my life on a football pitch. And as you said, I mean the VAR officials are clearly going, listen, I think you've got this one wrong. But to go over and have a look at it, not even to overturn it, the whole thing just reeks to me of somebody's had a word and he's had like an appraisal, and it's like, listen, maybe you're a bit too lenient. You should maybe start dishing out some more cards. Because, fun enough, he was refereeing the USG game in the match before, and he sent off 2-3 players in that game as well. So 100% that's what it reeks of. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. There's no punishments for referees. I see he's on VAR. I think it's a Hearts game this weekend as well. So there's no consequences on you go, Kieran. You're going to step in there.
I think because it's a week behind, so if he was to be stood down, it would be for the following week's games. I think the fixtures are decided a week prior, so any consequence wouldn't have an effect in this weekend's games. It would be the next set of games. So we'll wait and see. The last time this happened in the Scottish Cup final, the referee hand was given a nice home match as a linesman at his favourite club. So we'll see if Walsh gets the same. It's just, I think you're bang on there, Kev, with the point you make that the club have got the SFA over a barrel, right? We bang on time and time again about how we don't put enough pressure on the referees the way they do across the city. Now, this is an absolute tap-in, right? The referees dished out a red right away. Now, whether or not the rule stands for, I know I had a back and forth in the group chat earlier this week about how VAR should be used. In that instance, I don't think he's 100% sure, but he dishes the red anyway. I think he should dish a yellow and use VAR as his backup. It's almost like a safety net. And credit where it's due, is it the referee McDermott, the one that gave remember the penalty where Sterling was fouled at St Johnstone, and he held back, used VAR to make a decision, and then there was the Dessers foul at Hampden where he went through, or not foul at Hampden where he went through and scored. And the same referee used it as his backup to make the right decision. Yep. Surely that's what it's there for. Like, we said this after the League Cup final about how much the clubs pay for VAR. It's a lot of money, and a lot of money that Scottish football maybe doesn't have, and it's not being used correctly. So as another one where the club needs to step in and say, look, is there a consequence here? What are we going to do moving forward? Because Willie Collum's still to come out and do his YouTube show with Gordon Duncan and explain why the decision was given like that, and then why it was rescinded. And we'll also have the VAR independent panel that's obviously going to rule that another mistake against us. So the club have to be on the front foot with this, especially after a good performance. Then it doesn't look like sore grapes, like we've dropped points and we're just making a big issue to deflect. This is the time when we should be doing it.
Yeah, listen, I completely agree with you there, and yeah, just you never know what's going on behind the scenes. It could be very, very different, and I think as supporters, we're all hoping, because this is the second just absolute blatant and
I get that,
show of incompetence.
I get that, and I do believe something will be going on behind the scenes, but we need to be public about it. There needs to be public pressure from the fans and everything surrounding the way that they can drum up a storm in a teacup. We should be able to do the same. We should be able to cause a whole hurrah around it. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to see things happen to referees and stuff like that, but they do need to feel the pressure after decisions like that. Not just one decision, but two, to stick to his original. It's poor.
Yeah, it's just consequences to actions, isn't it? It's just it's the same. We were saying it, with Rangers, in terms of it didn't matter how badly you played. Like, you could be awful and you were still getting the team. It's like the referee. You can have a terrible. You can get decisions that literally nobody else is agreeing with, and you get 1 game ban or something like that.
I think one good thing that's come of it, fair play to Willie Collum, you say that much, was this show that he's now doing once a month, I think has brought the referees and the fans a little bit closer together, in the fact that that's going to come. Whereas if you think about times of old, if you knew that show wasn't coming, and I know everybody probably doesn't watch it or bother watching it, but it's a really good show in terms of not just the decisions that are going on for us, but you see it around other clubs as well. So I think the fact, especially if they're going to release the audio, I imagine it's going to be something like the fourth official, the VAR and the VAR assistant have turned around and said, we don't think that's violent conduct. We don't think he's touched them. Come and have another look. He's then looked at it and gone, I'm still going to do it. So I think that it's just ever so damning on the lad. And as you say, you don't want to. It's not impersonal against the referees. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm sure they don't go out and make that look to have a shocker, because there's no hiding place for them. So there's no point in them doing it. So and there was going to be no benefit of Diomande on the day. Do you know what I mean? So you know when you hear people saying, "Oh, he's been sending him off to try and to go against Rangers." I genuinely don't think of that. It's just horrific officiating. And you see it when these referees referee other games in Scotland and when they go into Europe. Hence why we haven't had a referee at a major tournament for a number of years. They're just not very good. But I say that show it'll be another interesting one in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, no, I know I'll be tuning in for that one for sure. And again, like you, I never thought I'd be saying that about a show that Willie Collum was leading. Right, listen, we'll move on to the next talking points in the agenda here, and I'll come to you this, Kieran. Rangers are taking on Union Saint Gilloise in the final league match at Ibrox. We're depending on results. This is all according to Scottish Coefficient, which is an excellent Twitter page. If you've not seen it, go and check that out, because he has worked through every permutation possible here. Rangers could either finish as high as 5th, depending on results, or as low as 23rd. USG are on a terrific run of form at the minute. I was reading on its UEFA Twitter page, they've gone 15 games unbeaten. They've had 5 successive wins. They play in a sort of 3-5-2 where they utilise their wing backs, enjoy a high press. The last few games they've scored quite a few goals, but I think they are the lowest scorers in the competition. Their main man up top, Franjo Ivanovic, he scored I think 17 goals this year, got 5 assists. But you know, what are you expecting from USG tomorrow? They had a really poor start to the season, Kieran, but they really seem to be turning it around, and they've just got that knack of winning, it seems, at the moment.
Yeah, it's they've had an incredible climb as a club. If you remember back, was it 3 years ago we played them? 2 years ago at Ibrox in the qualifiers. Tillman header that settled it, and they had the likes of Victor Boniface up front, who's now unbelievable for Bayer Leverkusen, attracting £70 million bid from Saudi at the moment. So that just shows the kind of quality that they can bring through and produce. And if I'm correct in saying this, aren't they backed pretty heavily? They've got quite wealthy owners. So
Brighton. Is it Brighton now then, is it?
That's it. That's the one. I knew there was some sort of connection. So their rise has been unbelievable. So I'm actually looking forward to a good game of football. Thursday nights have been a bit of light relief to what's been a pretty dire season again. So I'm looking forward to some of the performances in Europe. And again, under the bright lights, this is where I know we're going to go on to talk to them. Igamane and Jefte, this is where they need to be doing it. And this is where they have been doing it. So I'm looking forward to that as well. It's unusual to be looking forward to a game this season for Rangers, but yeah, I'm expecting quite an open game. It's good when teams come and play rather than sitting in at Ibrox. I think it'll be a very different story on Sunday versus Ross County, where we can expect a low block. Whereas the European games, when teams come out and proper open up and we can hit teams on the break pretty quickly, it makes for a more entertaining game. And as fans, that's what we're looking for, and a win, obviously.
Yeah, well, I was just about to say, I mean, I'm obviously hoping we absolutely give them a bit of a doing tomorrow night. It will be fascinating to see, but just from a purely footballing perspective, I felt that the last time they came to Ibrox, they really, really struggled with the atmosphere, but that team that they had didn't have a lot of experience in terms of playing in European games like that. But I'm not saying it's a lot of that squad's still there, but they still have a couple of players like it never fails to amuse me this as well, Kevin McAllister. So I'll be fascinated to see how they can cope in that atmosphere even 2-3 years on from the last game.
He usually goes missing.
That's Dessers that just misses, full stop. I can't say that. He scored 2 unbelievable goals in the last 2 games. When's the guy ever going? Oh, I know, man. Been on form. JP, you'll come to you for this next one. Before we get into sort of Rangers selection and all that stuff, because I was racking my brains with this line. I don't know what Clement's going to do. But one player that we do know that's definitely back. I've already talked about him a wee bit this podcast already. That's Mohamed Diomande. I felt that he was excellent at the weekend, and maybe that was. I don't want to be too critical of the performance against Man United because of what we were up against and the squad depth we have. But one thing was missing, maybe a bit of control on the pitch. Are you looking forward to seeing Mohamed Diomande returning tomorrow?
Yeah, definitely. I think in the European games, he's that link. I think he does a lot of clever work that like the day-to-day fan probably doesn't appreciate, and I include myself in that. I think he makes a lot of intelligent runs. We always refer to our in-house Johnny Walker, don't we, in terms of letting us know whether we're right or wrong or not. But in terms of he makes a lot of really good runs, and when you look out for it, he actually really does do it. I spotted it really. I've seen it most at Nice away. The run he made for his goal was that our second goal, I think. Second goal, wasn't it, over the top? It was a really clever run, and it was a clever ball that found him. Probably falls under poor defending, and a really clever finish. And I think he gets himself into them positions quite a lot, but 9 times out of 10 the pass doesn't make it to him. But he's still there to make that run, which potentially doesn't suit him domestically, because of the fact that we're wanting people to be on the ball, dominant. There's not as much space in behind, so maybe we don't see the best of him in Scotland. Is it another one of the signings that you're going to turn around like Robin Proper and say, you know what, he's built for Europe? Because I still don't think he's really got a grip on many games domestically so far. I think he's got the ability to. You've seen that against Tottenham. He's got all the ability in the world to get his foot in, do the dirty stuff. Domestically, he just still seems that it's as if he's still learning. But you've got to remember, he's such a young lad as well. We can just be so guilty of just assuming because we paid a little bit of money for him that he's going to be ready and good to go. So yeah, I think delighted he's back for tomorrow, and delighted he's not suspended as well. I think is no coincidence he's one of the players that falls into the category of his best performances have been in Europe and against them as well. I thought he was immense at the Ibrox 3-0 game against them. And it was almost a case of, right, is that him arrived, and then kick on, and he's gone a little bit quiet, a little bit off it again, and then back in. But it took his goal really well the other day, and it'll just be interesting to see where he uses him tomorrow. Is he going to go with the European formation with a 3-man midfield, a little bit tighter? Does Bailey Rice come in and Diomande goes forward, that extra man? Does he? Because I can't see him going to a 4-4-2 like we've been seeing domestically, but he might have to, needs must, given the numbers that we've got. But no, looking forward to seeing him again tomorrow. And he is one that I know we spoke around a lot of speech around Jefte and a lot of speak around Igamane in terms of these guys making us money. Diamande's in that mould of what he's been bought for. He hasn't been bought for 5-10 years. He's been bought in to recycle quite quickly, I think. And you can see glimpses. You definitely see glimpses, and the fact that he showed he could do it against Tottenham and he's doing it in Europe goes to show that he can definitely take that step up when the time's right.
Yeah, again, totally agree with what you're saying there, GB. It's he's one of these players that sometimes you're maybe not noticing everything he's doing until he's been taken out of the team, and that's why I've made that comment about Man United. And again, I agree with you in terms of he always does make those runs. It's certainly something that I've noticed a wee bit more is those. What I want to call them, the sort of Frank. He needs to do more of that. The Frank Lampard runs into the box, the late runs on the edge of the 6-yard box. Because honestly, I think he'd score a barrel load of goals there, especially in Scottish football. Kieran, I'll come on to you for this next point here, and maybe get both your thoughts on it. But I was in the press conference today. Clement was asked about who was back and what injuries and stuff like that were available, and he's normally pretty open about it and pretty willing to discuss it, but he was very coy. He said, I don't want to give the Belgians my team or my tactics. And then obviously we've seen the photos since of Václav Černý in training and John Suter back in training. What did you make of those comments and Clement being a bit more, I don't know, a bit more, I don't want to say clever, but yeah, coy, and with his comments today?
I quite like it. I think sometimes we are quick to show our cards, and I don't know, especially when our team's so thin and the lack of registrations with missing guys like Danilo and Hagi and others from the squad, it can be quite easy to work out who's playing for us. So I really do hope that Suter is back. He has been missed big time. Do I think we'll throw him in? I very much doubt that. Just for the fact he's been out for, what is it, 6 or 7 weeks, possibly 8 weeks, and he's probably one of our main players. Saying that, though, it's probably our most important game of the season so far, given that the league's gone and the League Cup's passed, and it's only this and the Scottish Cup that we're left playing for. So maybe he would throw him in, but knowing his track record and throwing guys in that have had injuries previous, probably not. So yeah, the main one I think for me is Cherney. I didn't believe he would be back this quick. It looked like a hamstring injury at Old Trafford, which you're usually looking at anywhere between 3 to 8 weeks, but I'd be delighted to see him back. In Europe, I think he's been excellent. Again, there's another one that's probably obviously not at us, pushing for a move to try and get his name in lights, and it's the biggest stage you could do it in at Rangers at the moment. So, especially with the lack of options, no Hagi in that squad, like I just mentioned, like that's another one missing from the wide areas. So we're pretty thin when it comes to wingers at the moment. So Cherney, we'll be really hoping that Cherney's fit enough to start. So I hope that's the one that he's keeping from everyone.
Yeah, no, I'll be. Yeah, I just thought it was interesting to see that he just changed that a wee bit. I've never seen him be like that before, and you don't want to say there's nothing on the game because you've already qualified, but I hope that's something that maybe keeps to going forward, because he's so open about these things. I think you can basically predict teams. I mean, I think we all knew who was starting against Man United. We all know who was starting away to Dundee as well. Dundee United, sorry. Listen, maybe we try this a wee bit differently here. There's a couple of questions. Paul McGorrigle here, he's got his team. He says, depending on injuries, my team, Butland, Barron, Tav, Proper, Jefte, Raskin, Diomande, Bayrami, Lovelace, Igamane, and Dessers. And CGM 55 here says, who is playing centre half tomorrow? It is slightly concerning. I'll maybe go through some players and you can both tell me if you disagree with where they are. But the front four, I'm really not sure what to do. But I think we both agree that Butland will be in goals.
Yep.
Tab at right back.
Yeah.
Depends what goes on at centre back. If Suter's not fit, then I could see Tav going in there again. And do you know something? He actually made a good account of himself at centre back versus Man United.
Yeah.
And nobody's talking about it, but his pass to Dessers was an absolute worldie, man.
Yeah.
So,
I just think you lose. I think you get away with it against a really good side like United. Tomorrow we're going to have a lot of the ball. We hardly have a kick against United, and you know what I mean. So I think you want him in his best position. If we had somebody to come in and play a right back, then I'd probably might have a different lens on it. But I don't think we've got another option.
Yeah, and JB, I'll stick with you. The two centre backs then, like if Suter is, say, I don't know, 70% fit, is he going to play in this game because there is nobody else alongside Proper?
I think so. I think the way the manager kind of referenced it was almost a case of it's a big push. I can't remember the exact words he used, but he almost kind of referenced as if this is the last game. Do you know what I mean? Let's go for it. I mean, he doesn't need to play on Sunday. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't need to play another league game for the next 6 weeks. Like, let's just get him through Thursday. However, Suter's probably a slight exception to the rule, given the fact that you don't want to risk him, because you just know you can't. You don't. Either what you don't want is another 6 to 8 weeks on the back of us just being greedy. Do you know what I mean? As you touched on earlier, we don't have to win the game. We want to win the game, but it's not as if it's do or die. I think tomorrow for me falls under the definitely do not lose. And if we turn up on the night, then we'll win. I think it's just so frustrating that we just haven't got the options. I mean, players who could have played in there, you're probably looking at your Enciala's not available, Sterling's not available, Casemira's not available, Balogun's not available. It's uncanny, you know, like in terms of it, as much as I think all three of us would probably give Clement grief over some of his decisions since he's been in charge. But you know, when you're like, poor fella, you know, like it's if that was any other club in Europe, it'd be getting spoke around. I remember Liverpool had a bad year during, when was it, the year after COVID, and when they had so many defenders out, and everyone's heads were falling off, and they finished. Did they finish outside the top four? I think.
Yeah.
They ended up in the Europa League, didn't they? And it's just such an important position, and especially as you take up this jump up. For what it's worth, I think it's got to be Shooter, and if not available, then King, and not for his ability, just for the fact that he's there. I think it's literally down to the bare bones. I can't see another option to play somebody at right back to bring Tav in one if that was an option. If we had a right back option, I'd potentially look at it a little bit different. But
definitely not Redman, JB.
I don't think he'll be available, given the fact he hobbled off last week and he wasn't available at the weekend. Did Clement? I don't think Clement took it. I don't think he was asked about him at the week.
I said it was a little injury.
We've heard that before, haven't we? John Eustace. Yeah, I think it's. Yeah, I'm not too sure with him. If he's available, then you could maybe do something there. That's a option, but yeah, I think at the end of the day, King, I mean, I think he's a bit of a jinx because every time he comes on, something seems to go wrong. That said it out loud, maybe that myth's over. But like when he first come in, when he was really young, you thought you could see he had a little bit of everything, and you thought, right, go on and kick on, but he just mustn't be doing it in training. I think he's looked like a bomb scare in any of the B games I've seen, but so is Enciala. So it could just be a case of having maybe Robin Proper next to him, talking through, guiding him through the game. It might just have to be needs must.
Yeah, I think so. I've just got a wee feeling that we might see Suter just because he never was just so.
I hope so.
About it. Just a wee quick one here. Paul McGarrigle says, do you guys not think Barron could play right back? He's played that position before. I'm not even convinced that Barron's fit for tomorrow. So I don't think we'll be seeing him playing right back. But yeah, if he was fit, then that should always be an option. Right, I'm assuming the two central midfielders will be Raskin and Diomande. Because JB.
Yeah, I think that's probably the bookies' favourite. It just depends whether he wants to go with his European formation, and he might bring Bailey Rice in next to him. He'll play the two, and then Diomande in front for his energy for them runs into the box that you touched on. That's the only potential caveat that we might see. But again, watch the space with that one.
Yeah, no, I if Diomande was playing in more of an 8 role than a 10, we've seen him playing that 10 before, and I just don't think he was.
Yeah, I'm not a great lover of it. I think he's played it a couple of times in Europe, and you've seen it. I always jump back to Benfica away, where he was immense on the night, and he really caused a lot of problems with his pressing and his energy. I think I suppose if everybody else works hard, then Diomande doesn't need to do that 10 role. I definitely think that wee bit deep is his best position. I just found it quite telling that Bailey Rice didn't get a kick on Sunday. When it was a tap in for the manager to throw him in for 20 minutes, half an hour. Appreciate he played a lot of minutes more minutes than potentially planned against United, but we did a lot of our work in our own half. It's not as if he was getting asked to run a line or anything. It was very tidy and stuff. So maybe just one eye on Thursday, but it might just be wishful thinking.
I think it will be interesting to see how brave he is. Would he go Dessers up front with Igamane in the 10, Bayrami on the left and Vaskalav Cherny on the right? Like, how brave does he want to go by playing two strikers? Someone did say in the comments, I think it was Paul McCorrickle wrote in the comments, USG actually play a 3-5-2. So you would want to match them with a 5 across the middle. So if you were, it would be very brave to play Igamane as a 10 if they play 5 across the middle.
The thing is with Igamane, though, he gives you the hold-up play and he gives you the ability to carry the ball as well. So he's just so good, isn't he? I've actually had a few of my mates, Everton lads, who I'm in a WhatsApp group with, and they were asking about him today because it's been reported locally that they're super interested and they want it done before the end of the window. And you're asking what's he like, and I just said he's crap. But he's. I sent him a picture of Dessers. I sent him a video of Dessers' goal against Man U, which I think I might have caught a few with that. But Yeah, no, he's just got a bit of everything, and I think it's where do you use him? Do you use him off the left as well? Is that an option? Not necessarily as a full on winger, but with an expectation that is we want him to be cutting inside. Is that an option as well? So he's he's definitely first name on the list, isn't he?
Oh, I love
Yeah,
him.
interestingly enough, that because that's what I've actually got is Igamane in the 10 with Dessers up top, in my sort of predicted lineup. Based on again what Clement said and just the fact he refused to answer that, like you, Kieran, I thought Czerny was going to be goosed for a few weeks, because it was clearly his hamstring he was pulling when he came off. But something just tells me that he's going to be playing this game. It's the left. I can't. Wouldn't. I'll ask you, Kieran. Would you not consider even a Finlay Curtis or a Zach Lovelace on that left side just to balance it up a wee bit, or do you think it will be Bayrami out there? But the only thing with Bayrami is I don't know if I'm maybe as strong on this as other supporters. I've seen a lot of criticism of him of late, saying he just doesn't look bored. He doesn't look like he wants to be here. I'm maybe not quite there yet with it, but what do you think about a potentially Curtis or Lovelace on that left hand side?
It just depends how much the manager can trust one of them. Being so young and so inexperienced, it would be huge if he was to chuck one of them in on the left for this game. For me, I think it would be more likely to see Ross McCausland, given that Ross McCausland ended the game against Man U on the left as opposed to Curtis on the right. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to see Curtis or Lovelace. Given what we've seen the past few weeks, I'm very excited to see what is ahead with these two youngsters. That's if we can tie Lovelace then. I know we're going to get on to the Curtis stuff. So yeah, I'd be very surprised if it was Lovelace or Curtis, and I would be very excited if it was either of them starting. But yeah, probably McCausland is the more likely. But on your point about Bayrami, I really like him. Why didn't we celebration there?
I know, I was, because you suggested McCausland might be starting. That was me trying to stop an aneurysm, man.
I thought you seen a scoreline in the comments.
No comment.
On the Bayrami point, I'm kind of on the boat of I really like him. I think he's got so much more to come, but he's not done enough yet. I think JB said it in one of the other pods. Don't get me wrong, it might not have been you. About he probably needs a goal just to get him going and get that confidence, and the way he plays for Albania with that sort of bit more freedom, and what we've seen him do for Albania, we've not really seen him do for us yet. But there's two sides of the coin here, right? See, when we had Malik Tillman, everybody said doesn't do it against Celtic. He doesn't do it against Celtic. He's always doing it against other teams. See with Bayrami, it's like he only does it against Celtic. Doesn't seem to do it against anybody else. So choose your fighter, as they say. But I think there's better to come from him. When I was saying being brave, playing Igamane in the 10, I think being not so brave and playing someone that's more of a natural midfielder in the 10, it would be Bayrami that gets the shout. It just depends how he goes in the wings.
Yeah, I totally agree. It'll be absolutely fascinating to see how he lines up tomorrow. But if Rangers go up and do their thing, I know that USG are one of the informed teams in Europe at the moment. But hopefully we do get that seeded position and finish above in the 16. Right, JP, I'll come on to the next point here. Jim Backs a wee while ago, he said this. Sorry, I might be imagining this, but did I see it being reported? The PC getting the Phillipe Clement getting a new number 2, and we can confirm that it was announced earlier on today. There was a wee statement put out. Rangers can announce the appointment of Issam Charai as the men's first team assistant manager. Experienced youth coach Charai joins Gers from League on side Strasbourg, having previously worked in the Belgian Pro League as assistant manager and as the manager of Morocco's under-23 team, where he led them to the under-23 African Cup of Nations title. Just a wee bit here as well. It says that Andres Ulderlink had to leave for personal reasons. So just a wee message from all the people at TII, just hopefully that everything's okay there, and thank you for being at the club. But I did do a wee bit of research on there on Issam Charai, JB, and he had Hamza Igamane in several of his under-23 squads. I think he even gave in some minutes as well. What's your thoughts on quite an interesting appointment, I would say, this one?
Yeah, it's a really interesting. You touched on it there, Carl. Really interesting profile in terms of seems quite dynamic approach. I think he's is a gap that's been missing for a while. I think the fella you mentioned earlier, I can't pronounce his name for the life of me. I think he left just before the Old Firm. In terms of the previous assistant, I think he went a few weeks ago. So there was obviously a gap there. I think a lot of people would have been looking at that to go, if we don't appoint one, then is that delaying the inevitable with the manager? But for me, this kind of gives a little bit more of a back into the manager. In terms of, obviously, we know the new contract went ahead in the summer with the extension, but I thought the 3.5-year deal was quite telling in terms of he's been dug out for a reason. It's really interesting that it's a market that we've expressed a massive interest in, obviously on the back of the success with Igamane. I think these guys, from a Morocco perspective, they're definitely going through a bit of a golden generation. I've done a bit of research this afternoon and clicked through all of the players that played in the 2023 win that they had. And if you go through that 11, it's every player's worth 10 million or more. And it's like, they probably mightn't have been at the time, but they definitely certainly are now. Now, that's not going to all be credit to the manager, because it's going to be credit to the clubs that they're at and the development that they've had. But it goes to show that there's definitely talent coming out of that region. So if we've got somebody that's got the finger on the pulse within that environment, worked with these lads, he's obviously had assistant jobs at a few decent clubs around Belgium as well. I think, and that Belgian league's a good league. I know we've probably had mixed results in terms of players coming in and out, but that's one place that's definitely mastered the player trading model. I think we touched on it earlier in terms of Boniface and a few others that have just had them huge moves. USG have raked in millions and tens of millions over the last few years because of the model that they've got built. Now, I'm not going to say we're going to be able to replicate that on day one, but if you start to look and go, if everything goes according to plan, touch wood, and we were to roll out Jefte and Igamane in the summer for the best part of 30 million, then all of a sudden you go, oh, right, that's how this is going to work. And then you start to have a bit more faith then. And the type of player you attract, I think we missed a massive own goal after Calvin Bassey. Calvin Bassey and Joe Aribo should have been the picture boys of the Rangers recruitment strategy moving forward. But instead, we just ripped it up and then started to sign lads like Kieran Dowell and Todd Cantwell to a lesser extent, Tom Lawrence. These type of guys are just absolute stinkers in terms of a player trading model. Plenty of ability in there, but it's just not what we needed. So yeah, I think that this lad's coming in. It's going to be really interesting. A fresh set of eyes can never be a bad thing. We are playing well in patches. So if this guy comes in and can identify a couple of things we can fix around the edges, then I'm all for it. And hopefully he's a set piece coach. So we'll wait and see. I'm sure somebody out there will know whether he is or not. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I do. I think it is an exciting appointment. Scott Hammond here says, and bravo, I tip my hat to you. We could be going to the Moroccan market, no puns intended, which we might very well be. Yeah, right. Let's move on to some transfer news. Kieran, I'll come to you for this one here. Since we were last on, there's been loads of movement, loads of rumours, loads of deals, more so in the outgoings and ingoings. I was going to have a conversation about Kieran Dowell, but I don't really see the point, to be honest with you. I think he's Birmingham City. I don't know what algorithm they've got. They must have some sort of scouting analysis system that literally only has Rangers on it. That's the only thing I can think of. But I very much
tell you one thing, Kyle. I spoke to a Birmingham season ticket holder yesterday, so a lad who we used to work with, and he said Ben Davies has been immense.
Yeah. 10 million.
The lad cannot put a foot wrong. He's big, he's strong, he's quick, he's great in possession. I'm like, you sure? He's like, yeah, honestly, he's brilliant. So, and that was after because the last I was going through the WhatsApp messages we transferred, and the last guy he'd asked me about was Ben Davies, and I just replied with good luck. So he's asked me what Kieran Dowell's like, and I've given him a similar response. So yeah, he'll be in the England squad probably come the summer.
But then it just shows you how important are that certain people fit certain clubs, and I think it was pretty evident for the get-go that Davies was just didn't have it mentally to be a Rangers player. But Kieran, the guy, he was returning from injury. I think he was even on the bench against Manchester United, never came on, which, you look into that what you will. He's got 6 months left in his deal. I seen it earlier on in the month that Romano reported that Besiktas were interested in signing him. And the guy who broke the story of Matondo initially going on loan says a number of championship and overseas clubs are interested in Tom Lawrence. I don't think the club are going to be difficult to deal with if a bid comes in for him. And Paul McGorrigle here even said Lawrence to Derby. What's your thoughts on that? If a bid come in, surely he's a guy we just say thanks for your services and goodbye.
I think this is one where it would be best for all parties. It's just not worked out whatsoever. At the time, it looked like a great signing on paper that we're signing Derby's captain. Am I right in saying that? He was the captain at the time for Derby. Yep. He was flying, and then all of a sudden, injuries have curtailed things. And at his age, the injuries like the ones he sustained, his knee injury, I think it was an Achilles injury, are quite hard to recover from and regain what you had previously. So it has been a shame that this hasn't worked out. But on the flip side of it, this is another Ross Wilson signing that has cost us an absolute fortune compared to what we got for the money that we pay him in wages. And now trying to move him on, we're probably going to find it a wee bit difficult in terms of what other clubs can offer in terms of wages to match us. The same sort of thing that we've seen with guys like Ben Davies and Matondo, and even Kieran Dowell to an extent, that their wages can't be matched by many other teams outside the Premier League or teams that are willing to match them outside the Premier League. Is a real problem, and I'm glad it's something we've identified. I know there was a lot of commotion towards the 800,000 that we got for all the players during the summer, but
rightly so.
Yeah, of course, I do agree with it, but we will look back and that will be looked upon as a clean slate because it's something that had to be done, and we're probably going to have to do it to a lesser extent come this summer. So what we do this window will minimise the blow in the summer, and we can concentrate more on the incomings with that. So it's going to be interesting. In terms of the assistant managers, just to kind of go back a wee bit, that's going to be interesting as well. I'm not right in saying we were linked with a Moroccan that was going out a contract in Liga 1 that had quite a high profile, and he was quite young. So there again,
and another defender from Rabat as well, if you remember, central defender from Rabat. Aye,
that's correct. So we're going to be well and truly opened up to this market that looks like it's going to be pretty fruitful for us. In the comments again, somebody saying 13 clubs looking at Igamane. Like, when have we had that? When was the last time we had that sort of interest in a player? I think I say this every time I come on the podcast as well. See that cluster of the first 5 signings that we made in the summer, and like I know Liam Kelly was the first one, right? But Barron, Igamane, Jefte, and Ciala, right? We need to be doing that every single summer because I think all the players I named there didn't come to anywhere more than £2 million.
Yeah,
you're buying lottery tickets there, and hopefully you're going to cash 1 or 2 in when you look at guys like Igamane and Jefte, and even to a higher extent Diomande. That will come to fruition one day as well. Like, I think we'll get back more money than what we've paid for him, and it'll prove to be a good signing. So we're on the right path. Unfortunately, we need to be a wee bit patient. It's not something we're used to, but getting guys like Tom Lawrence out is key to us doing these things. And yeah, good luck to him wherever he goes, and hopefully he does go this window.
Yeah, I think. Listen, if anything comes in, a guy 6 months on the deal, you're just saying like, let's make this work and just get something for you, because that's ultimately what Rangers haven't been doing. And hate to say it, but the league is done. So if now is not the season to do things like this, and I don't know what is. But you brought me on to sort of next player or players I want to talk about quite nicely here. JB, the next. I think it was Rangers Review had the article out on that there was registered interest from Chelsea on Jefte, who has been fantastic this season. I found Clement's comments in the press conference earlier on when he was sort of asked about it. He said, I had the same in Genk where Trossard could have left also earlier and going to the Premier League. We talked with him about staying and developing, also had talks with other players like Sander Berg. It's important to do the right step at the right moment, because you see also a lot of players making a step higher and not being ready. Then they're losing themselves because they're not playing afterwards, because they're just not ready. It was the same in Bruges with players. It was the same with Monaco with players. So it's not something new. I have experience around it. I've been speaking with the players around that also. I understand one movement. When it's a good situation for the club and the player, you need to know when to let them go. I have thought Clement has spoken a lot of nonsense in the past few months, but this I was delighted to hear from it. What do you make of these links? And I mean, I'm not saying for a second suggesting that Jefte will go into Chelsea's first team or anything like that, but it's got to be positive that a team that this is what they do now. They do very much the baseball way. They're buying all the players, having them as a team, making them a unit, and then if a couple out of that are doing well, then they're happy with that. What do you make of these links?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one. As we've said a few times, this is where we need to be. This is where we need to get at. And I think for all the frustrations we've got with Clement, he's been consistent in the fact that this is what we're working on. It's a project, it's an evolution, which is great at the start. But then when you go into some of these away grounds and putting in some of the performances we put in, which have been nothing short of disgusting, then it doesn't wash. But when you do take a step back, so like an outsider looking in would go, he's doing really well there in terms of what he's doing. He's competing in Europe. He's gone to United. He was 2 minutes away from getting a point there. He's drew with Tottenham. All right, he went, we go through the best of forms, gone away to Nice and smashed them to bits. And then a few other really good results along the way. And you fall, I think, was that Clement's first European defeat last night?
Yeah.
So in terms of the perform, or certainly away from home, so in terms of that, that's kind of, you can see there's something there. I think for us, it's just been that frustration. But I'm a massive believer as well that the players have had a lot to do with the current form. Now I link that back to potentially not being motivated enough. But in terms of what we're looking for, the Hefty one, like, just ticks the boxes. We brought him in unknown. We brought him in from left field, a Brazilian playing in Cyprus. So he's obviously been signed because of the numbers that he's knocking out. But when you started to watch him in like the dreaded YouTube clips, you thought, this guy seems a little bit too good to be true. And then when he first arrived, I thought he looks a bit weak, a bit gangly, but he looks like he's bulked up a little bit. And what I really like about him now, he's added a little bit of aggression to his game over the last few months. There was one on against United the other day. I think it was Ahmad. Was about to face him up, and he just went bang, seeing a bit, and just shoulder barged him off the pitch, took the ball off him and carried it. Whereas I think in that pre-season game where we all had the fear a little bit, he would have stood off and then let him get got at. But I think there's definitely more to come from him. I think if he could add a half dozen goals a season into his game, I think he will just keep going to that next level. And I think it's so important that these European games can't be underestimated, because these guys aren't being judged against how they're performing against St Mirren and St Johnstone and Kilmarnock. They're being judged against your Nices and your Benficas and your USGs tomorrow and stuff, because that's the platform. So as much as we kind of sometimes might go, you know what, it's not the Europeans, not the be all and end all. It's super important that the players are getting up the platform to showcase what they can do here. And I think Hefty's a good example of that. The profile that he's got is brilliant. 6 foot plus, quick, left footed. I actually think he's still playing, I think, with a little bit of nervousness, but I think that's probably because the team as a whole haven't been playing well in the main. I'm surprised we haven't seen him probably more on the score sheet more, or a few more assists under his belt. But again, you can't walk past the fact he's only just turned 21. He's a Brazilian who can't speak English, who's been playing in Cyprus. That's psychologically, do you know what I mean? I think I was just giving up panini stickers when I was 21. It's mad. They just to expect what that kid's had to do, and coming to a club like Rangers with the expectation and the pressure. All right, he mightn't understand all the verbals that get dished around, but he'll certainly feel that intensity that the expectation is. And I think it's just a massive tick box for me. I think Ridvan's the one that we probably should be looking to rotate out. Appreciate again, he's only 23 himself, but that one I can't foresee that one working. Just in terms of the profile, so if we can get any money in for him, probably not before the end of the window now, but he's one that probably recycle, keep hefty for another season. I think someone's made the point there. The dream would be to get 20 million in for him, or 10 million plus, and then get him back on loan for a year. That's a model that you do see the likes of Chelsea doing. And if you look at the amount of players they've signed over the last 18 months, or over the last 18 years, it feels like now, they're not scared to sign players and put them back out on loan. So on long contracts. So yeah, no, all aboard the good recruitment train.
Yeah, no, it's just nice to have, players like this to talk about again, because Jefte and Igamane, I mean, as Paul said in the comments here, that there's 13 clubs looking at Igamane. I know you were talking about it earlier on, JB, in terms of your Everton pals asking you about it, and seeing that Spurs are very much linked in with it as well. I mean, I don't think I'd be exaggerating when I'd say realistically to get both these players this window, even next window, you're looking at 10 million minimal for Jefte and maybe 15 million for Igamane. I'd like to see them. Look at Kieran shaking his head on that one. I think if 50 million quid came in for Igamane, I think we would be foolish as a club to turn it down. I'd love for him to stay and develop, but I just can't see us turning that type of money down.
I think you're going to be looking at 20 plus. And the reason I say that is not just the player. I think when you start letting players like that go for 15, you set a precedent that everybody's going to come in and undercut you thinking that you need the money. So you don't want to set that precedent first thing. If there's 13 clubs after him and you're only demanding 15 million, then there's going to be 13 clubs bidding 15 million. You want to aim high with this one and see if you can get that off the mark. I take O'Reilly across the city as an example. He didn't do anything in Europe for them. He didn't get capped for Denmark. They managed to get 25 million for a guy that done it domestically. Like, we've got Igamane, and the ceiling for him is unbelievable at the moment. We really have a gem on our hands, and we can't let him go for any less than 20 million in my eyes. We have, and with a sell on as well, the sky's the limit for him, and we're seeing. And do you know something? He's improved every single game. Look at that second half against Dundee United at the weekend.
Yeah,
he was unplayable. It was unbelievable, and he's just a young guy as well. The best is yet to come from him, and maybe the opposite from JB in terms of you've got to strike where the iron's hot. And I think we've been a bit complacent with that in the past with guys like Kent and Morelos, where we've held on to them too long. See if the bids come in and the money's good, and we've got a real chance to rebuild our squad to a level that we've not had in a long time. We need to be taking that. I get that we love watching Jefte and we love watching Igamane, but if there's a chance here to bring in proper money and rebuild our squad properly, then we have got to take it. The main aim is that we've got a squad strong enough to qualify for the Champions League next year, and then the real money comes in, and that is the bigger picture that we need to be looking at. Not we'll hold on to these guys for as long as we can. We've got to take the money while we can. Look at teams like sorry, but and again, look at teams like Ajax, who famously over the years have churned out striker after striker after striker, and the fans have just accepted over the years that okay, we're going to sell him, but we're going to bring in the next star, and then when we sell him, we're going to bring in the next star, and that's just how a player trading model works. We've got to trust that Niels Klopp knows who the next guy is that's coming up.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. That's why I was really happy with that comment that Clement had today. Was like, you need to know when to let them go, and that he's not really had players like this at his disposal. And then he literally gave us examples of all the players that he said, stay with us for a bit, and then we'll peak you out. We'll get you your maximum value. JB, just want to come to you on this one again. Sort of last bit of transfer news here. New deals have been offered to Lovelace and Curtis, with the latter accepting the new offer. I was absolutely delighted seeing this wee video on the club's website. But the club as well said today, Rangers Football Club today announced Finlay Curtis has signed a contract extension of the club. Not really sure I'm a fan of them not releasing when it is, because I think if anybody was discussing it, the agent would just tell them. But it said the 18-year-old is a graduate of the club's academy, joining the youth set-up at the age of 6, and earlier this month marked his senior debut in the 5-0 Scottish Cup victories over Fraserburgh at Ibrox. 4 days later, the youngster celebrated his first European appearance for the Light Blues, which it was that press conference was so bizarre because I was so gutted that we just lost that game in the manner that we did, but equally delighted because you could see him as an 18-year-old, coming on Old Trafford to make your European debut. I mean, you could see the adrenaline surging through his body still. So it must have been difficult for him. But he said, speaking after putting pen to paper on a contract extension, Curtis commented, "It's a proud day for myself, my family, friends, and it's a good feeling to commit the future to the club. The manager's been so helpful with me and has given me all the confidence to keep on pushing. He said that my chance would come and to be patient. It's now about keeping my head down and continuing to do hard work, and the rewards will come." What do you make of Rangers signing, extending Finlay Curtis's deal? Do you want Zach Lovelace to sign as well? And how happy have you been at the amount of, albeit through circumstance, I would say most of the time, but the amount of players that we've got that are 23 and under, in Ciala, Curtis, Lovelace, Rice, Igamane, Raskin, Jefte, Diomande, and I've put Cortez and McCausland at the end of that list as well. But I mean, that's looking pretty. I suppose you could add Rafael Fernandez to that list too, but I mean, that's looking pretty healthy, dare I say it.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I think in terms of the Curtis, first of all, I think I've said this on previous pods, but my first glance of him was Birmingham away, and he was the only bright spark to come out of that evening. There was a few young lads who we were looking forward to seeing, the likes of Lowry, got minutes that day, and his attitude was absolutely shocking. Didn't want to run, didn't want to run into space, didn't want, when he received the ball, he was just giving it easy. And I thought, that's not what you want in a game like that, because a player can change their career in a pre-season friendly, just a drop of the shoulder, a bit of quality, then all of a sudden people can buy into it. But he just didn't look at it at all. But Curtis come on, and I didn't have no idea where he was, where he come from, how old he was. He just come on, this little skinny lad, left wing, and he terrorised the right back on the night. And what I really liked about him, he was very vocal. There was one that Dessa should have slipped him in, and he absolutely tore a shred off him. And you thought, go on, wee man, like you could see that he was proper up for it, and he cares and he's passionate. So that ticks all the boxes, but it does help. So I think the fact that getting him tied down, I think it sounds like it was an easy negotiation. I think his dad said in that interview he'd signed for Rangers for nothing. So
I don't tell him that.
I know, don't tell you. Don't give them an excuse. Life contract on paying him on bloody Broxy Bear Teddies or something. But so he's in. Lovelace, I think, is one. Again, the old injuries is a little bit of a worry, but you just got to hope that as his body as he stops growing, that these type of injuries are being seen less and less. He's one that we'd need to manage carefully. He's one that we just need to be careful as well that we don't get carried away and a little bit too excited. There's talk that like Leon King was on 10 grand a week. Do you know what I mean? He's not there. For me, you want to be offering him a decent contract, enough that entices him to stay, but not enough that is going to make him a problem in a couple of years' time. You can see he's definitely got the raw attributes to do the role that we're going to need him to do. I'll be fascinated to see guys like him in a 4-4-2. I think we've thrown them on the wing just as a kind of I'll go and play out there and cover a space. I think like if you see the likes of Curtis and Lovelace in a 2, not together obviously, but with a bit of experience next to them, and they've got almost a bit of a free reign, a bit of a free hit, then I think that's when we might see the best of these guys. I thought Lovelace's touch the other night was majestic in terms of against Dundee United. Could have quite easily got quite excited and maybe try to drop a shoulder and get a shot away, but a lovely way to pass into the Nigerian nightmare, and the rest was history. So no, I'm looking forward to seeing him, and you never know, he could be an outside shout for tomorrow as well. I think if his name's in the 11, Lovelace tomorrow, I think the fans will stick with him. They'll give him a chance. He might not need to do everything perfect. I mean, you can picture Bajrami giving away an easy pass in the first 10 minutes in a full stadium, almost getting on his back a little bit. But if Lovelace does the same situation, then he's probably going to get a bit of protection there. So he's one I'm looking forward to seeing a bit more of.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. The two that always, I mean, I think every time I went to go and see a B team game, Finlay Curtis was on the score sheet, and if Zach Lovelace was playing, as you said, the only thing is the injuries with him. But every time he always used to do one or two things in a game where I used to think, wow, that is, for a guy your age, that is pretty impressive. But Kieran, I'll leave the last question of the podcast to yourself. A nice easy one for you, and that is, if only one player in Rafael Fernandes comes in this January transfer window, will you be happy with that, or does it depend on the outgoings as well?
I think it depends on the outgoings. I said it the last time I was on the pod, and I'll reiterate it again. This window has got to be building towards the summer. In terms of Rafa Fernandes, who knows how much he'll play? Suter's coming back, Propper's in a wee bit of a run of form, so who knows how much he's going to play. But in terms of building for next year, that's where we've got to be looking at with guys like Fernandes. You just said it there, how young he is as well, and been capped for the Portugal under-23s even when he was at Lille. So we have got to be making positive signings, Bosman signings as well. It's a good market and it's a good time to be signing these guys. I wouldn't be bringing Lyle Cameron in at the moment, reason being, from a financial point of view, I just don't think it makes sense whatsoever. It will go to a tribunal in the summer, we'll owe them money, probably what they would want at the moment to release him 6 months early. I wouldn't say would be worth it for us. I think we stick with Rice and see what he can do for the next 6 months in there and start to progress and develop him as a player. I think that's the way that we've got to be looking at it, and hopefully we see Lyle Cameron come in the summer and it's up to him what he does from there. So,
you know, I think that's very fair. But listen, I think that's a good place to end the podcast on. So thank you to both my guests. So thank you, GB. Thank you, Kieran. Thanks for everybody for sticking in, commenting. If you haven't already, give the video a wee like. If you have not subscribed to the channel, give us a wee subscription. And take care, everybody. And we'll see you all again